Sister chose her boyfriend over our family after he claimed I spread lies, and I tried to explain the truth while she blocked me from her life until a friend shared screenshots that proved his manipulation and forced her to see what. I was 38 when everything finally cracked open, but the memory that keeps looping in my mind is from last winter when I stood in my sister Vera's small kitchen in Taliesin Ridge and tried to explain the truth to her while she stared at her phone instead of looking at me. I don't know if you ever feel something inside of you tighten so much that you can hear your own pulse, but that is what it felt like that night. Before that moment, I had always been the one she ran to. We grew up in a town with one school, one grocery store, and a whole lot of people who minded each other's business. I was older by 6 years, and I acted like it. I was the one who fixed her bike, the one who stayed up with her when she had nightmares, the one who walked her home from the bus when she was 12 and kept her calm when our parents were fighting again. Our family was not awful, but we were tired people. My father, now 64, worked nights at the mill until his back went out. My mother, 60, spent most of her days trying to stretch money and patience in equal measure. By the time I was 17, I was already working double shifts at the auto shop. Vera was 11 then and always sitting near me, poking at loose screws and asking how things worked. She trusted me. That is why losing her this year has felt like someone pulled out a part of my chest and left a cold space where the warmth used to be. I guess I should start from the first time she brought her boyfriend around. His name was Keaton, 31, soft-spoken, too soft-spoken, the type of soft that hides sharp edges. He had one of those practiced smiles that never reached his eyes. They had been dating for 2 months when she introduced him to us. I tried giving him a fair shot. I sat across from him at dinner and asked simple things. Where he worked. What he liked to do. He gave answers that felt polished. When people talk like that, you start feeling like you are not talking to a person but a script someone memorized. Still, she liked him. That mattered to me. At the time, I was living 20 minutes away with my roommate and friend, Callum, 37, who had known me since high school. He kept telling me to relax. He said maybe the guy was nervous. I tried. I really did. But then small things started happening. Vera stopped answering group texts from the family. She canceled plans last minute. She stopped showing up for our Sunday breakfasts. She told me she was tired from work, but I kept noticing she posted photos with Keaton on nights she said she was at home. Then she stopped coming to our parents' house completely. My mother cried about it. My father stayed quiet the way he always does when he does not want to say something that will hurt more than it helps. I decided to talk to her. I drove to her apartment and found Keaton there. He opened the door and said she was busy and did not want to be bothered. I could hear her voice in the background saying something I could not understand. He closed the door before I could respond. That night was the first time I felt like something was truly wrong. Callum told me to wait it out, but waiting only made the distance worse. A week later, Vera finally called. Her voice sounded tired, not physically tired but worn down in a way that comes from emotional strain. She told me she needed space. She said I was being controlling. I asked how. She said Keaton told her I was spreading lies about him. I almost dropped my phone. Lies. About him. I asked her what he said I did. She paused for a very long time. Then she said he told her I was telling people around town that he was cheating on her and using her for money. I told her I never said any of that. I told her I barely knew him. I asked who told him such things. She said he saw messages. I asked to see them. She said she deleted them. She sounded defensive. That was a new tone from her. It sounded like someone else's voice. I drove back over to her place again. Keaton answered again. He said she did not want to see me. I pushed the door open a little and saw her sitting on the couch, hugging her knees, eyes red. She said she did not want to talk. That day she blocked me on every platform. She blocked our parents too. My mom cried again. My dad went outside in his slippers, his hands in his pockets, and stared at the fence for an hour. I kept replaying the conversation. I couldn't understand how someone she knew for months could convince her that I would ever do something like that. It was the kind of hurt that hung with me even when I tried to sleep. I kept checking my phone at night. Kept hoping she'd unblock me. She didn't. For 3 months, she lived inside whatever story he fed her. The silence between us grew heavy enough that it felt like a weight pressed against my chest. In that period, I tried distracting myself with work. I fixed cars. I cleaned the shop. I helped Callum with his projects. But every small, quiet moment turned into a place where the thoughts rushed back. What did he tell her? Why did she believe him? Was she scared of him? Had I missed signs? In April, everything shifted. A friend of hers, Rowan, 29, reached out to me online. She asked if we could meet. I said yes. When we met at a coffee place, she looked nervous. She kept checking the door. She told me she had screenshots. Screenshots of messages. Screenshots that showed Keaton pretending to be me on fake accounts, sending himself threats, spreading lies, then showing them to my sister. My jaw actually tightened until it hurt. Rowan said she had known something was wrong but did not know how far it went until she saw him texting himself from accounts with my name in them. She gave me the screenshots. She told me she wanted Vera to see the truth, but she needed help. I felt something inside me collapse and rebuild in the same moment. I thanked her. I sat in my truck afterward and stared at the screenshots for 20 minutes. Every one of them felt like a punch. The man had been tearing my relationship with my sister apart in the most deliberate way possible. That night, I drove to my parents' house. I showed them everything. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. My father stayed still and quiet for a long time. Then he said we needed to show her no matter what it took. I agreed. I felt a mix of fear and hope twisting inside me. I had no idea how she would react. I just knew I needed her to see the truth. I did not sleep the night before I went to see her, because my mind kept replaying every memory I had of us growing up and every moment she had trusted me, and the idea that she now saw me as the enemy kept pressing against my chest like a weight that would not shift no matter how I breathed. I knew showing up at her apartment without warning could set her off, but waiting felt worse, so I drove there early in the morning while the roads were still quiet and the air felt cold enough to sting my hands. I sat in the truck for a few minutes, thinking about what I wanted to say, and none of it came out right in my head. I kept seeing her face from the last time I saw her, small and tired and guilty and confused, and I kept hearing her call me controlling. By the time I finally walked up to her door, my stomach was tight. I knocked lightly because I didn't want to scare her. It took a long time for anything to happen, and then I heard the chain slide, and she opened the door halfway. She looked thinner. Her eyes looked like she hadn't slept much either. When she saw me, something flickered in her face, something like shock mixed with caution. She asked what I wanted. I told her I just needed 10 minutes. She hesitated, then stepped back to let me in. The apartment felt off, like it hadn't been cleaned in a while, and the air felt stale. I sat on the edge of a chair while she stood across the room with her arms folded. I could see she was bracing herself. I told her I had something she needed to see. She told me she did not want more drama. I told her it was not drama. It was proof. Her voice shook when she said she did not know if she could trust me. I felt that go through me like a cut. I told her I knew why she felt that way and that I understood how convincing someone can be when you care about them and want to believe they are a good person. I told her I was not angry at her. I was angry at what was done to her. She did not speak. She just stared at me with this exhausted expression that made me want to hug her. But I stayed where I was because I did not want her to feel cornered. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. At first she did not move. Then she stepped closer. She stared at the screen like she could not figure out what she was seeing. Her eyes moved fast. She kept scrolling. Her breathing changed. She whispered his name once, almost like she was asking a question. She looked up at me with this fragile confusion that made me feel both relieved and sick. She asked where I got these. I told her Rowan gave them to me because she was worried about her. She stared at the wall for a long moment, then she sat on the edge of the couch and covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. I stood there not knowing if she wanted space or comfort. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded small. She said she did not know what was real anymore. I sat on the floor a few feet away from her so I would not feel threatening and told her I believed her. I told her manipulation works by taking your doubts, twisting them, and feeding them back to you until you trust the wrong person and hate the right one. I told her none of this was her fault. She kept crying quietly, and it took her a long time to steady herself. When she finally pulled her hands away from her face, her eyes were red and swollen. She asked me why someone would do something like this. I told her I did not know everything, but it looked like he wanted control. Maybe he wanted her isolated. Maybe he wanted to make sure that if anyone noticed something was off, she would not have support to escape it. She whispered that she thought he loved her. Her voice cracked when she said it. I told her that real love does not hide behind lies. Real love does not cut you off from the people who care about you. She asked me if our parents knew. I told her yes. She said she felt ashamed. I told her she did not need to. She was the one who had been hurt. She had nothing to be ashamed of. She sat there for a while with her hands in her lap. Then she asked if I hated her for believing him. That question hit me hard. I told her no. I told her I loved her and that I never stopped loving her. When I said that, something inside her seemed to break open. She moved closer and put her head on my shoulder. I had not held my sister like that since she was a kid, and the moment felt heavier than anything I can describe. After a few minutes, she said she needed time to think. She asked if she could stay at my place for a bit. I told her of course. She packed a small bag. She kept shaking her hands like she was restless or scared. When we walked to my truck, she kept looking behind her, like she expected him to show up. I asked if he knew she was leaving. She said no. She said he was still asleep. She said she felt sick thinking about how he would react. I told her she did not have to go back there. She nodded, but I could see fear in her eyes. When we got to my place, Callum was in the kitchen. He froze when he saw her because he knew she had cut us off for months, but he played it cool. He asked if she wanted tea. She said yes. She sat at the table and wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to warm herself. Callum looked at me with a question in his eyes. I shook my head. Later, when she went to rest in the spare room, I told him everything. He let out a long breath and said he had known something felt wrong. That night, she barely slept. I could hear her pacing. I could hear her crying softly. Every sound made me want to protect her. In the morning, she came out looking drained. She said she wanted to talk to our parents. She wanted them to know she was sorry. She wanted to fix things. I drove her there. My mother cried upon seeing her. My father hugged her tightly without uttering a word. The house felt warm again, for the first time in months. But even at that relieving moment, one could read from her face that the fear hadn't left her yet. She knew he would notice she was gone. She knew he would reach out. That fear was real, and none of us could ignore it. We just did not know what was coming next. It wasn't until the third day after she came home that things began to move in a direction none of us were ready for, because even though our parents tried to pretend everything was normal by cooking too much food and opening the curtains to let in more light, the truth sat in every corner of the house like a shadow that would not leave, and I could see Vera feeling it every time she looked at her phone or flinched at a sudden noise from outside. She stayed quiet most of that morning, sitting at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a cup she never drank from. My mother kept touching her arm like she wanted to remind her she was safe. My father stayed close, moving slow and speaking even slower, like he did not want anything he said to push her toward panic. By noon, she said she wanted to pick up the rest of her clothes. My stomach tightened when she said it. Callum, who had stopped by to check on us, looked at me and gave a slight shake of his head. I told her I could go with her. She said she did not want to go alone, but she looked scared to walk into that apartment even with me there. I asked if she wanted to call the police. She said she did not want things to get out of control. I wanted to argue, but she looked so fragile that I swallowed the words and just told her we would move fast and be careful. My parents wanted to come, but I told them they did not need to. They were too shaken and I did not want them near him. Callum came with us. When we reached the building, Vera stopped in the parking lot and took a long breath. She looked like she was trying to steady herself, but her hands were shaking so much she had trouble unlocking the door. When we stepped inside the building, the hallway smelled like old carpet. Except for the humming of the vending machine by the stairs, it was quiet. She led us up to the second floor. She stopped again. Then she unlocked her door. The apartment smelled different than the last time I was there, like stale food mixed with something sour. Her stuff was piled all over. Some drawers were open. The place looked like someone had been pacing through it at night. Callum walked ahead to make sure no one was there. When he gave me a nod, we started packing fast. Vera kept looking around like she expected him to appear at any second. She grabbed clothes from the bedroom and whispered under her breath every few seconds, saying things like she could not believe she had lived like this. I kept trying to focus on the task and not the fear rising in my chest. We were almost done when her phone buzzed. She froze. She looked down at the screen. She whispered that it was him. I told her to put it down. She said she could not. She said she needed to see what he said. She opened the message. His words filled the screen. He said he knew she was gone. He said she was making a mistake. He said she needed to come back so they could fix things. She started shaking again. I told her not to respond. She nodded, but her eyes were wet. Then the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. I felt the air leave my lungs. Callum looked at me from across the room. He mouthed one word. Ready. Someone stopped outside the door. Then a knock. A soft knock. I heard him say her name. Calm voice. Too calm. She closed her eyes and grabbed my arm. I walked to the door. I told him through the wood that she was not talking. He said he deserved a chance. He said she would regret hiding from him. His tone changed fast. Calm to sharp. Like a switch flipped inside him. I stepped away from the door because I could hear the anger growing in his voice. He said he knew I was filling her head with lies. He said I was jealous. I felt heat rising in my chest. I told him she had seen the truth herself. He said I was ruining everything. I could hear him breathing hard. Callum moved closer. He stood near me in case the door opened. The next moment felt long, like the air thickened. Then his voice dropped to a low whisper. He said she would come back. He said she always came back. Something about the way he said it made Vera step back like she'd touched something hot. Then he walked away. His footsteps faded down the hallway. I waited a full minute before opening the door a crack. The hallway was empty. We grabbed the rest of her things and got out fast. When we drove away, she looked out the window with tears running down her face. She said she felt stupid. I told her she was not stupid. She had been manipulated. She looked down and kept rubbing her hands together. She said she hated herself for believing him over her own family. I told her healing takes time. She said time felt slow. When we got back to my parents' house, she went straight to the back room and cried. My mother sat with her for hours. I stood outside the door for a while, listening to her voice break. Later that night, after she finally fell asleep, Callum and I sat on the porch. I told him I felt scared for her. He said fear was normal, but she was not alone now. I wanted to believe that was enough. But something inside me felt uneasy. I could not shake the feeling that this was not finished, that someone like him would not let go quietly. When I went to bed, I kept checking the windows. I kept listening for footsteps on the gravel outside. The house felt safe, but only on the surface. Under that, there was a tension in the air that none of us wanted to say out loud yet. In the morning, that tension grew when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, because the moment I opened it and saw what it said, I realized he was not done with us at all. The message said I needed to watch myself because I had ruined something that did not concern me, and something about the wording made my stomach twist because it did not sound like regular anger. It sounded like someone who had convinced himself he was the victim, someone who believed whatever story he'd built in his mind so completely that anything outside it felt like an attack on his existence. And I sat there at the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand, thinking about how far someone like that could go when his control slipped away. I did not tell my parents right away because I did not want them to panic, but I showed it to Callum, and he stared at the screen with this tight expression and said we should report it. I agreed. We went to the station that afternoon. Vera came with us even though she looked terrified. She kept her hoodie pulled low and kept rubbing the sleeve between her fingers like she needed something solid to hold. The officer listened to everything carefully. He asked to see the screenshots we had of his manipulation. He asked about the visit to the apartment. He asked about the knock at the door. He said what we described sounded clear enough to document. He suggested Vera file for a protective order. She hesitated, but the officer said it could give her control back. She finally nodded. I felt relief wash through me because for the first time we were doing something concrete that could protect her, even if a piece of me still worried about how he might react. On the way home, she sat in the back seat and stared out the window. She asked me if I thought she looked stupid in all of this. I told her again that she did not. I said manipulation changes how you see the world because it makes you think your own instincts cannot be trusted. She nodded slowly and kept her eyes on the road ahead. When we got home, she went into the kitchen to help our mother chop vegetables for dinner, something she'd done since she was a kid, and the sight of her standing there in the warm kitchen light with her sleeves rolled up made something inside me loosen, like maybe she was stepping back into herself piece by piece. During dinner she talked more. She laughed a little. She told my father she was sorry. He said she did not need to apologize. He said she was his daughter, and that was all that mattered. She cried when he said that. After dinner she sat on the porch with me and Callum. The sky had turned a deep blue, and the air smelled clean. She told us she had been scared that we would never want her back in our lives. I told her family does not disappear because of one mistake. She said she wanted to rebuild things slowly. She said she wanted to learn to trust her own mind again. She told us she felt guilty for hurting us, and I told her healing was not about guilt. It was about understanding what took you off track and finding the strength to move forward. She asked me if I thought he would leave her alone. I said I hoped so. I didn't lie. I didn't promise something I couldn't control. I just said I hoped the order and the police report would make him step back. She nodded like she appreciated the honesty even though it scared her. Later that night, after she went to bed, I checked the locks again. I looked outside to make sure no car was sitting at the edge of the driveway. The tension still lived in the corners of the house, even though there was no sign of him anywhere. It took days for things to settle even a little. Vera met with a counselor. She told us the sessions made her realize how lost she had been. She told me it felt like waking up from a long dream. She did not hear from him again after the order was filed. The police contacted him and made it clear he needed to stay away, and that seemed to do something because the messages stopped completely. Weeks passed. She started helping my mother at her small flower shop. She started meeting old friends. She kept a notebook where she wrote down things she wanted to remember, things she wanted to rebuild, things she wanted from her life now that she was no longer stuck in a story someone else had written for her. One evening she sat with me on the porch while the sun went down. She said she knew she had a long way to go. She said she was scared of making another mistake. She said she did not know who she was without someone telling her what to think. I told her she was already showing who she was. I said she came back home even when fear tried to trap her. I said that made her stronger than she realized. She leaned her head on my shoulder the way she had when we were kids. She said she wanted to choose her life with intention now. She said she did not want to run from things anymore. I told her she did not have to run. She just had to take one step at a time. A quiet settled over us. The kind that feels like a deep breath after months of holding everything in. When the porch light clicked on, she said thank you for not giving up on her. I told her that was never an option. She smiled, tired but real. In the weeks that followed, she rebuilt things slowly, reconnecting with our parents, starting to trust herself again, speaking about the manipulation openly and with clarity, not shame. She told me she finally understood that love without respect is not love at all. And little by little, the shadow that had followed her started to lose its grip. She did not forget what happened, but she learned from it. She grew from it. One night she hugged me before going inside and said she finally felt safe. The moment stayed with me because it felt like the end of something heavy and the start of something honest. She walked through the doorway with steady steps, and I watched her go feeling proud of her.